This is New Mexico. The single state in the American Southwest holds within its borders one of the longest continuously inhabited landscapes on the entire continent, where communities have lived on the same mesas and river terraces for over 800 years. Longer than most European capitals have stood in their present form. Here, the sky feels larger than the land beneath it, an ocean of blue stretching over a high desert plateau, where the air is thin, dry, and startlingly clear. Painters and photographers have chased this exact quality of light for over a century, a clarity so distinct it has its own nickname among locals, the Land of Enchantment, a phrase that sounds like tourism copy until you actually stand beneath it at dusk and watch the mountains turn the color of raw watermelon. The state sits where the southern Rocky Mountains collapse into the northern edge of the Chihuahuan Desert, a meeting point of two entirely different ecological worlds within a single afternoon's drive. To the north, alpine forests of ponderosa pine and aspen climb toward peaks that hold snow into June. To the south, creosote bush and ocotillo stretch across basin and range country, so dry that entire mountain ranges rise out of the desert floor like islands with no water around them. Between these extremes runs the Rio Grande, a ribbon of green that has made human settlement possible here for millennia. The seasonal rhythm of New Mexico is a study in contrast. Summer brings intense, dry heat to the lowlands, broken most afternoons by the monsoon, a near-daily thunderstorm cycle that rolls in from the south each July and August, dropping sudden, violent rain and lightning before clearing to a spotless sky within the hour. Winter turns the northern mountains into a serious ski destination, with powder snow settling over the same slopes where, a few hours south, cactus still bloom in the sun. Spring and fall are brief, windy, and golden. When cottonwoods along the river valleys turn a shade of yellow so intense that entire communities plan festivals around it. New Mexico's human story is built on layers that rarely fully erased one another. 19 distinct Pueblo communities, along with the Navajo Nation and several Apache nations, maintain sovereign governments and living cultural traditions that predate Spanish contact by centuries. Spanish colonists arrived in the late 1500s and stayed, building a Hispano culture with its own dialect of Spanish, its own foods, its own Saints' Day traditions, found nowhere else in quite the same form. Anglo-American settlers, homesteaders, railroad workers, and later scientists and artists layered on top of that. What makes this place remarkable is not that these worlds simply exist side by side, but that in many towns they never fully separated at all. What does it take for a place to hold three distinct, deeply rooted cultures together for 4 centuries without any of them disappearing? We're so glad you've made the drive out here with us today. Before we go further into the mesas and river valleys ahead, we'd love to know who's watching along. Leave a comment and tell us where in the world you're joining us from, and share one place you've always dreamed of seeing for yourself. We read every one. And some of your dream destinations end up right here in a future episode. on, a map of North America, New Mexico sits squarely in the southwest, bordered by Arizona to the west, Colorado to the north, Oklahoma and Texas to the east, and the Mexican states of Chihuahua and Sonora to the south. At just over 121,000 square miles, it ranks as the fifth largest state in the country by land area, yet it holds one of the lowest population densities anywhere in the continental United States, a vastness that becomes obvious the moment you leave any of its cities. The state's topography splits cleanly into distinct zones. The Southern Rockies dominate the north-central region, feeding into high alpine valleys and forested wilderness. The Colorado Plateau's red rock country creeps into the northwest corner, all sandstone mesas and slot canyons. The Great Plains lap at the eastern edge, flat grassland running out toward Texas. And the south is basin and range desert, a corrugated landscape of dry valleys separated by isolated mountain chains, part of the greater Chihuahuan Desert that spills down into Mexico. Nearly all of New Mexico's population clusters along the Rio Grande corridor and a handful of river valleys, a narrow green thread running down the middle of the state. Step even 20 miles off that corridor in almost any direction, and the land empties out fast into ranching country, tribal lands, and federal wilderness, where the nearest town might be an hour's drive away. The Rio Grande itself is the defining geographic feature, flowing the length of the state from its origin in the Colorado Mountains down to the Mexican border, carving a fertile valley that has supported farming since long before written history here began. The Sangre de Cristo Mountains, the southernmost range of the Rockies, rise dramatically above Santa Fe and Taos, their name Spanish for blood of Christ, said to come from the deep red glow the peaks take on at sunset. The Jemez Mountains to the west hold the collapsed remains of a supervolcano, and the Sacramento Mountains rise abruptly out of the southern desert, thick with pine forest at elevations that feel entirely disconnected from the Chihuahuan lowlands just below. A distinct secondary zone worth naming is the Tularosa Basin in the south-central part of the state, a closed desert valley ringed by mountains, home to both the glaring white gypsum dunes of White Sands and, on its northern edge, the site where the world's first nuclear weapon was detonated in 1945. Pronghorn antelope and oryx, an African species introduced decades ago for hunting, now share this basin's scrubland, an odd cross-continental pairing found almost nowhere else on Earth. Leaving Albuquerque or Santa Fe behind, the drive north or west turns the highway into something closer to a journey through geologic time. Mesas rise in flat-top tiers, their striped rock faces recording millions of years of sediment. Pine and juniper give way to open sagebrush flats, then to red sandstone canyons where the only sound is wind moving through rock. Deeper into the high desert, the ecosystem reveals itself in layers of scent and texture. The sharp, resinous smell of pine after rain. The pale green of chamisa brush turning gold in autumn, and soil that ranges from deep red to nearly white depending on the mineral bed beneath it. This is a landscape built by absence of water as much as by rock. Among the standout natural landmarks is Shiprock, a jagged volcanic spire rising nearly 1,600 feet above the flat desert floor of the Navajo Nation, visible from tens of miles away and sacred to the Navajo people. Who know it as Teesbitter, the rock with wings. Carlsbad Caverns in the far southeast protects one of the largest known cave chambers in North America, a limestone labyrinth carved out over millions of years, home to hundreds of thousands of Brazilian free-tailed bats that pour out of the cave mouth in a living funnel cloud each summer evening. A second, quieter wonder sits in the north, the Rio Grande Gorge near Taos, a sheer 800-foot basalt canyon that the river has sliced through the plateau so cleanly it seems to appear out of nowhere on an otherwise flat landscape. A third, stranger landmark is the Bisti Denazin Wilderness in the northwest, a badlands of eroded hoodoos and petrified wood so alien in shape that visitors frequently describe it as walking across another planet, a place where the rock itself seems to have been sculpted by something other than wind and time. Farther south and west, the Gila Wilderness anchors another distinct geographic zone. Designated in 1924, it became the first officially protected wilderness area in the world. Over 500,000 acres of rugged canyon country along the headwaters of the Gila River, its cliffs still holding the abandoned stone dwellings of the Mogollon people, who built rooms directly into natural caves along the canyon walls roughly 7 centuries ago. Among earth scientists and geologists, New Mexico carries an outsized reputation, less for any single feature than for the sheer diversity packed into one state. Active volcanic fields, deep limestone cave systems, ancient river terraces, and some of the best preserved dinosaur fossil beds in the country all sit within a few hours' drive of one another, a natural laboratory of the arid West. Before we head further into the story of the people who call this high desert home, we're curious. Would you rather stand beneath the alpine forests of the Sangre de Cristo range in a fresh snowfall, or walk barefoot across the blinding white gypsum dunes of white sands under a full moon? Drop your answer in the comments below. We always enjoy reading where your imagination takes you. Now, let's continue our journey together. New Mexico's most iconic large animal may well be the black bear, which ranges through the state's forested mountains from the Sangre de Cristos down to the Gila Wilderness in the southwest. An animal deeply woven into both ranching anxieties and tribal storytelling alike. Elk move in large herds through the same high country, their bugling calls echoing across mountain valleys each autumn during the rut, drawing hunters and wildlife photographers from across the country. Above the ground, the skies belong to an unusually rich cast of birds. The state's official bird, the greater roadrunner, is a fast, ground-dwelling cuckoo, capable of short bursts of speed, chasing lizards and snakes across the desert floor. An animal that became a cartoon icon precisely because its real behavior is already faintly absurd to watch. New Mexico records well over 500 confirmed bird species, one of the highest counts of any inland state in the country, a fact tied directly to its position along major migratory flyways. Among the standouts, the sandhill crane, which arrives by the tens of thousands each winter at the Bosque del Apache National Wildlife Refuge along the Rio Grande. The golden eagle, which nests on cliff faces across the northern mesas, and the elegant trogon, a rare, vividly colored visitor that occasionally strays north from Mexico into the Gilles Canyon country, drawing birders from across the continent, chasing a single sighting. Along the rivers and irrigation ditches, smaller and aquatic life fills in the picture. The Rio Grande silvery minnow, an endangered fish found almost nowhere else on Earth, clings to survival in the river's shrinking flow. Bullfrogs and painted turtles crowd the shaded pools of the Rio Grande Bosque, the cottonwood forest that lines the river through Albuquerque and beyond, an unexpected ribbon of wetland habitat threading straight through a desert city. Easy to miss but locally cherished are the state's smaller nocturnal residents. The ringtail, a raccoon relative with enormous eyes and a striped tail nearly as long as its body, which dens in rocky canyon crevices and rarely shows itself before dark. And the kit fox, a small, large-eared desert fox that hunts kangaroo rats under moonlight across the open grasslands of the east. The bosque itself supports a quieter form of river life worth noting on its own. Beavers, largely absent from popular imagination of the desert southwest, maintain active dams along stretches of the Rio Grande and its tributaries. Their engineering helping to slow and diversify a river otherwise squeezed by drought and diversion. New Mexico's signature natural spectacle, the one wildlife event that draws visitors from across the world each year, is the sandhill crane and snow goose migration at Bosque del Apache. Each winter, tens of thousands of birds descend on the refuge's managed wetlands at once, and at dawn and dusk they lift off or settle in en masse, a roaring, rolling wave of wings and calls that fills the entire sky above the river for minutes at a time, one of the great concentrated wildlife gatherings anywhere in North America. History long before any outside contact, the ancestors of today's Pueblo peoples built multi-story stone and adobe villages across the Four Corners region and the Rio Grande Valley. Developing sophisticated irrigation systems, extensive trade networks reaching as far as the Pacific coast and central Mexico, and complex astronomical knowledge embedded directly into their architecture. Chaco Canyon, occupied roughly between the 9th and 12th centuries, became a major ceremonial and trading center whose great houses, some containing hundreds of rooms, were aligned with striking precision to solar and lunar cycles. Spanish explorers under Francisco Vizquez de Coronado marched through the region in 1540, searching for cities of gold that did not exist, and found instead thriving Pueblo communities who resisted the intrusion. Full colonization followed decades later, in 1598, when Juan de Orte established the first permanent Spanish settlement, and by 1610, the colonial capital of Santa Fe was founded, making it one of the oldest continuously occupied seats of government in the entire United States, predating Jamestown's permanence and decades ahead of Plymouth. Ahead of the main wave of Anglo-American settlement, small communities of Sephardic Jewish traders and merchants, descendants of families that had fled the Spanish Inquisition generations earlier, quietly settled into towns across northern New Mexico, some maintaining private religious customs in secret for generations even while publicly practicing Catholicism, a hidden thread of history that families in towns like Mora and Las Vegas, New Mexico, are still tracing today. Spanish colonial rule imposed the encomienda system on Pueblo communities, forcing labor and tribute from native villages and attempting to suppress traditional religious practice in favor of Catholic conversion, a policy enforced with real brutality by colonial authorities and missionaries. That imposition met sustained resistance. In 1680, the Pueblo Revolt united nearly all of the Pueblo nations in a coordinated uprising, driving Spanish colonists entirely out of New Mexico for 12 years, one of the most successful indigenous rebellions against European colonization anywhere in the Americas. When the Spanish returned in 1692, they did so under a renegotiated relationship that allowed Pueblo communities to retain more of their land, governance, and religious practice than almost anywhere else colonized by Spain, a legacy still visible in the strength of Pueblo sovereignty today. Mexico won independence from Spain in 1821, and New Mexico became a Mexican territory, opening the Santa Fe Trail to American traders and bringing a wave of Anglo-American merchants and goods into the region for the first time. The Mexican-American War brought New Mexico under United States control in 1848, a transition that reshaped land ownership and legal systems, while Hispano and Pueblo communities fought for generations afterward to retain land grants recognized under prior Spanish and Mexican law. Later waves added further threads. Chinese laborers arrived to build the railroads through the territory in the 1880s, and small numbers of Lebanese and Syrian merchants settled in New Mexico's growing rail towns by the early 1900s, running dry goods stores that became fixtures of small-town commerce. The 20th century pulled New Mexico directly into world events in a way few other states experienced. During the Second World War, the top-secret Manhattan Project established its central laboratory at Los Alamos, a remote mesa chosen specifically for its isolation, where scientists developed the first atomic bomb, tested at the Trinity site in the Tularosa Basin on July 16, 1945, an event that quietly and permanently reshaped the state's economy, its demographics, and its place in global history. New Mexico achieved full statehood on January 6, 1912, the 47th state admitted to the Union, after more than 60 years as a U.S. territory, a long wait shaped partly by prejudice against its majority Hispanic and Native population among lawmakers in Washington. The decades that followed brought their own turbulence, land grant disputes that occasionally turned violent. Including armed confrontations in the 1960s over unresolved Spanish and Mexican land claims, and ongoing legal battles over water rights that continue to define politics in the state today. Most recently, New Mexico has become one of the largest oil-producing states in the country, driven by the Permian Basin's Delaware Subbasin in the southeast. An economic boom that has filled state budget coffers even as it sits in tension with the state's tourism identity and with tribal and environmental groups concerned about land and water impacts near the boom's edges. In the decades since Los Alamos, New Mexico's isolation and clear, dry air have made it an unlikely hub for scientific research more broadly. On the high plains of San Agustin west of Socorro, the Very Large Array spreads 27 massive radio telescope dishes across railway tracks in a Y-shaped configuration, periodically reconfigured to change the array's resolution, scanning the universe for signals no human eye could ever see, a scene so otherworldly it has appeared in numerous films exactly because nothing else on Earth quite resembles it. Arrival in Santa Fe surprises most first-time visitors immediately. No skyscrapers, no glass towers, just a low, sand-colored skyline where building codes require nearly every structure downtown to mimic adobe architecture, whether it is centuries old or built last year. The city holds roughly 90,000 residents, a small capital by national standards, yet it draws millions of visitors annually and functions as the cultural anchor for a state many times its size. Seen from above, Santa Fe spreads across a high desert basin at over 7,000 feet elevation. Ringed by the Sangre de Cristo Mountains to the east, its streets following the old, irregular logic of a colonial-era town rather than a modern grid. Narrow lanes curling around a central plaza that has anchored the city since 1610. The historic plaza itself sits at the heart of the city's UNESCO-recognized colonial core, flanked by the Palace of the Governors, the oldest continuously used public building in the United States, built around 1610 and still standing as a museum today. Just steps away, the Cathedral Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi rises in French Romanesque style, an architectural anomaly in an otherwise adobe town, built atop an older adobe chapel by a French-born archbishop in the 1880s. A second landmark worth pausing on is Fort Marcy, built by American forces after the 1846 occupation on a hill overlooking the city, its earthen ramparts now mostly eroded, but still visible, offering a quiet overlook where the entire old city and its surrounding mountains can be seen at once. Everyday life in Santa Fe moves at an unhurried pace built around food, art, and ritual. The smell of roasting green chili drifts through the Santa Fe Farmers Market each fall, one of the oldest and largest producer-only markets in the Southwest, where Pueblo farmers, Hispano ranchers, and newer organic growers sell side by side. Evenings bring the scent of pine smoke from fireplaces settling over the low rooftops, a smell so specific to the city that longtime residents can identify home by it alone. The Santa Fe Plaza itself functions as this shared civic stage. On any given weekend, it might host a native artisan market where Pueblo silversmiths and potters sell directly beneath the Palace of the Governor's portal. A tradition dating back generations, immediately beside Hispano folk art vendors and touring musicians, the entire population of the city and its visitors moving through the same small square at once. Driving out of Santa Fe, the transition is immediate. adobe walls give way to open pine juniper hills within minutes, traffic thins to almost nothing, and the highway narrows as it climbs toward the high plateau country to the north or drops toward the desert basins to the south. New Mexicans often refer to this vast remainder of the state simply as the backcountry, or, in the north, La Tierra, the land, a term carrying both a literal and deeply cultural weight for Hispano land grant communities whose families have worked the same acequia irrigated plots for 10 generations or more. Distinct peoples occupy distinct territories across this interior. The Navajo Nation stretches across the northwest, the largest tribal land base in the country. Each of the 19 Pueblo nations holds its own separate sovereign lands along the Rio Grande and its tributaries. From Taos Pueblo in the north to Isleta and Isleta communities near Albuquerque. The Mescalero Apache hold reservation land in the south-central mountains, and the Jicarilla Apache Nation occupies high country in the northwest corner near Colorado. One particular village worth picturing directly, in the small Hispano settlement of Truchas, high in the Sangre de Cristos, houses of adobe and hand-hewn timber cling to a ridge above the Rio Grande Gorge. Sheep still graze narrow terraced fields, fed by centuries-old acequia ditches, and Spanish spoken in the local plaza carries an archaic vocabulary, preserved words that have faded out of use even in Spain itself. Passed down almost